Greetings Teslamancers, this is Borsenberger with yet another episode of Tesla Stuff. In my previous video, The Lore of Teslagrad 2, 1 year later, I briefly talked about Rain Games' next project, an unannounced platforming game. That game has now been officially announced as Knucklejet. It's a spin-off of World to the West, and in my Teslagrad lore videos, I mentioned some tie-ins to that game, but mostly skipped over it. Now is a perfect time to give it the attention it deserves. This is the lore of World to the West. World to the West takes place 25 years after the ending of Teslagrad 1. In that time span, our hero, the Tesla Kid, has gotten together with this girl shown in Teslagrad 1's true ending, and together they have started a family, having 4 children: Ohm, Lumina, Tjalv, and Roskva. Lumina is the star of this game and Teslagrad 2. In this game, she's 15 years old. At the start of World to the West, Lumina is chasing after her father into Teslagrad's infamous Tesla Tower, which after 25 years is showing some external wear. For example, the greenhouse dome over Wintergarden has collapsed, yet the tree inside appears to have continued growing. Inside, she runs into her older sister Ohm, who says that her father has been looking for her. She missed her younger brother Tjalv's attempts on the Blink course, and tells her to gather up her younger siblings so they can go home, and keep them away from the teleporter. If we take a look around, we can find some Norwegian text to translate. This says Dad never has time, because canonically, he has been busy trying to maintain a stable government in the midst of the power vacuum that follows the end of the King's reign in Teslagrad 1. This says Mom is the toughest, and most importantly, this says Ohm smells like goat cheese. A specific variety of goat cheese called geitost or gettost. And out of sheer curiosity, I had to pick up some of this stuff to try it for myself. It's very mellow, mildly sweet, mildly sour, and craves salt, so it'll pair well with things like crackers. What's it smell like? Faintly sour at room temperature. Which, yeah, is a pretty accurate way to describe Ohm if you ask me. At the end of the Blink course is a sign that unsurprisingly says finish line, and past that are the younger siblings. They want to use the teleporter to go directly into the tower so they can see Dad. Recalling Ohm's words, Lumina attempts to resist, but instead comes up a little light, and immediately succumbs to the peer pressure. By Ohm's own admission, nobody listens to her. The teleporter is dormant, but Lumina helps activate it. When she stands on the platform, the voice of reason, Ohm, appears and says this teleporter isn't taking them to Dad, it could go anywhere, and to get down immediately. Before she gets a chance, Tjalv plugs in a loose wire, and Lumina is teleported to an unknown place, the World to the West. Immediately afterward, the teleporter on the other side breaks down. Where is this place? Teslagrad 2 provides a map showing the World to the West as a separate continent, with the eastern side featuring Electropia, Angloria, Mesmer, Motorland, and the northern Viking territory, Wormheim. As Lumina begins looking around, she immediately finds a monument written in Electropian script, left behind by the Teslamancers. In it, they declare their intent to record their discoveries, by the decree of Solomon Tesla, who is Lumina's great-grandfather. The Teslamancers' expedition to this place has some backstory context. In Teslagrad 1, we have a mural showing the Teslamancers' arrival by sea. Scroll 18 shows Solomon Tesla's discoveries from archaeological digs, magnetic orbs, ancient temples, and the giant spherical guardian orb. Another monument speaks of stone structures guarded by metallic electrical beings, technology that the Teslamancers hope to study. The third monument? Well, it's a trap! Lumina falls into a trap door and we segue into Chapter 2. But before we do, we know that Electropian script is actually written in Norwegian, and each of these monuments share a texture with the same Norwegian phrase written on it. If we translate it, we get a little Easter egg of a message. This is the cat's grave. It now lives in your Tesla staff. May the cat's spirit be with you. Chapter 2 begins with a boy named Knaus crawling through a hole in a cavern and being surprised to see a tree and sunlight streaming through a hole in the ceiling. As he speaks to the other children, we learn that they are a group of orphans from Motorland who have been led to believe that they have been sent to the moon aboard a vehicle called the Moon Bullet and have been given the mission to mine moon rocks for the next 2 years in 16-hour shifts. In reality, they've been shipped to the western continent to mine coal for Motorland's machinery. None of these children want to believe Knaus's exposure of the truth, that they're not on the moon. They'd rather complete the mining job as quickly as possible. Any kids who do misbehave are buried up to their neck in a shame pit. When Knaus talks to Rattrich, the big kid acting as foreman of the mine, he, of course, takes offense that somebody is shirking the opportunity given to them by the great tycoon, his boss. He then makes an example of Knaus and exiles him from the mining camp. Now on his own, Knaus must navigate through this cave while avoiding hazardous creatures. What is that music?
Day number 1 of feeding my pet crew to gain his trust.
Hey kid, get in my belly. Divine.
You don't want to eat me. I have the black lung.
I'll be the judge of that. Come here, blonde Luigi.
I promise I don't taste that good.
Nom 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 nom. Delicious.
After giving the Grus a wide berth,
Who are you calling white?
be quiet, we reach a temple where someone has been waiting for us. Us, collectively, because she's disappointed that only Knaus is here, but that's about to change. Chapter 3 introduces the mesmerizing Miss Terry, or Mystery if you want to emphasize the pun. She's being hired by Tycoon himself to bring him an artifact from one of the abandoned temples. To assist with the mission, he refers her to his valet for details on an item he is gifting her. When we speak to the valet, he said the item was arriving via airship from Mesmer, Terry's homeland, but the airship hasn't arrived, and he asks Terry to be on the lookout for it. Speaking to the other folks in this building, we find they're a bunch of stuck-up rich people who care only about money and little else. One of them needs somebody to work the gramophone next to him so he can listen to a recording of money clinking. Another one is pestering the chef because he wants to eat the red thing that crunches, but he can't be bothered giving any detail beyond that. Outside is a man who identifies the building as the Affluent Society. He wanted to glean some business secrets from them, but only heard 2 guys saying "indeed" and "quite so" back and forth for 2 hours. Indeed. Quite so. Seriously, there is so much humorous dialogue in this game that I can't cover it all. A news reporter gives us a scoop that an airship has crashed in the jungle. Interesting. The only other building we can enter is the inn where Terry is staying. Here's her room. There's also a bar downstairs, but it's currently closed. Our access to the rest of the town is blocked by a spilled pallet of watermelons, but we can tell from the sign and the dock that we are in a port town called Carte Blanche. Terry sets forth with only her scarf as equipment, which can stun enemies, and cross gaps that feature these grappling hook fence posts. She enters the temple while Knaus is having his conversation with the old lady. She calls attention to the totem at the center that has their faces on it. She tries to explain that it is foretold that 4 companions will journey together, but Terry doesn't have time for this. She just wants to find her artifact, get paid, and move on. Terry's shtick is finding geometrically shaped keys and using them to open similarly shaped doors. She has some success with this until she finds a block she can't move. Upon backtracking, Knaus and the lady teleport in via the totem. These totems are fast travel points, and also places where the player can switch characters. To progress, they must use teamwork. The lady gives Knaus a destination far to the west, and then leaves them to it. Knaus is small enough to fit into a tunnel and move the block, allowing Terry to collect the key and open the door. Outside, she finds a flaming airship bearing the insignia of Mesmer. Looks like we found it. Inside the chest is a wondrous piece of mind-bending technology, a hypnotist mask that allows her to take control of any creature. A use case immediately presents itself with the flail monks being able to fetch keys, but it works on bigger creatures too. You know what that means.
Day number 2 of feeding my pet crew to gain his trust.
Hello, Miss Indiana Jones. Whoa, trippy.
Let's go for a ride.
This better be worth it.
I found you some delicious snackos. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Ooh. Divine. Feed me more. Come here, you tasty squirrel-like creatures. Delicious. They're like furry chicken nuggets. Thanks. I'm stuffed.
Good job. Now go take a bath.
Turns out we do need one of these flail monks to grab us a key, but beyond the door is a tunnel that only Knaus can enter, so now it's his turn. After making his way through the newly opened tunnel, he follows the waterfront path and catches a conversation happening nearby. A black-haired lady with a spiky ponytail is attempting to recruit an old man into some sort of group. The man calls the group organizer a conniving scoundrel and says he wants no part of it, and she shouldn't either. She attempts to rationalize the alliance as justice for both of them losing everything they had. He counters that nothing they could do will bring any of that back. Frustrated, she leaves, and he tells her not to come back. When Knaus talks to him, he wonders why he's out here alone. It's not a safe place for kids. Continuing on, Knaus drops into a hole in the ground, navigates through the cavernous passageways, and emerges into a cold biome that gets even colder the further he goes. He finally drops into another hole in the ground to land in front of his objective. Inside the chest is a pair of ice skates, but they aren't just for skating on ice, they also make ice, allowing Knaus to cross over bodies of water that are at the same level as the neighboring ground. He now must return to the old lady, whom Knaus has learned is named Tenoc. If we talk to the old man again after acquiring the ice skates, he says he's living the quiet life as he has had enough excitement in his day. If you haven't figured it out yet, this is Oleg from Teslagrad 1. When we return to the temple via totem, Knaus's mission is complete, and we can return to Miss Terry. Sending a flail monk through the passage that Knaus traversed lets us grab a key to open a door to the artifact temple. There are signs here that Terry can't read because they're written in Electropian, but she does comment on the cute figures wearing blue hoods. Getting to the artifact requires a simple pattern. Hypnotize a flail monk. Retrieve a key. Open a door. Hypnotize another flail monk. Retrieve a key. Open a door. Flail monk. Key. Door. Flail monk. Key. Door. Flail monk. Key. Door. Terry successfully collects the artifact, but suddenly the temple goes into lockdown. Terry manages to escape and make her way back to Carte Blanche. Upon entering the affluent society, Terry delivers the artifact, and then commits the greatest sin of late-stage capitalism. She asks to be paid. Tycoon indicates there's another artifact out west in the desert that she could have been tasked with retrieving, but he prefers the modern business practice of refusing to pay his contractors for honest work. This is the guy running a child labor camp not too far from here, after all. Now he has someone better to do his jobs for him. Someone clad in red armor. Someone with a spiky black ponytail. Someone with an apparatus on her arm that looks like some sort of knucklejet. Tycoon sends Terry falling into a pit. She cautions her replacement that she'll be betrayed next, as we fade to black and the chapter concludes. In Chapter 4, we meet a man who is larger than life, so much so that he has more than one of them, Lord Clonington. He's traveling from his homeland of Angloria to the western continent by boat, along with his associate, Dr. Hypodermia, who cautions Clonington to be very careful with the life he currently has, since they didn't bring their cloning equipment along with them on the voyage. Clonington is here to introduce himself to the affluent society, and by introduce, he means asserting his superiority. His method of choice is by conquering a mighty beast. Hypodermia takes it up as an opportunity for scientific research, so they head into the jungle. The first victim, test subject, is a flail monk. Hypodermia commences the experiment and invites Clonington to give his customary greeting, which amounts to punching things in the face. Not a challenge to this strongman. The next obstacle in Clonington's way is a door, which Hypodermia sarcastically suggests bringing to the affluent society instead. Door meet fist! The thinly veiled tutorial continues, with Hypodermia spotting a grue, and commenting that they look very different from the ones in Angloria. Clonington calls it tiny. This just makes me curious to see what Anglorian grues look like. Punchity punch punch, Grue is down for the count. After some exploration, he discovers a totem, and is proud to see his face emblazoned upon it. As self-centered as this guy is, you would think he would be a dislikable character, but he's such a giant ham that he becomes endearing instead. He breaks his way into the main temple and meets Tenoc. She leans into his massive ego and manipulates him into standing in a particular spot and holding his arms out, but he instead performs a flex and, "Hello Lumina, so nice of you to drop in." He calls her a talking blue ferret as they return to Tenoc, who gives them their objectives. Everyone but Clonington is surprised that Tenoc knows things about them, but Clonington is so full of himself that he expects her to know about him. For Clonington, she marks the location of a great beast within the caves. For Lumina, a chest containing an object to help her return home. The Lord and the Ferret then proceed into Chapter 5. Clonington suddenly decides he can climb up small cliffs as he makes his way up the mountain, and encounters a couple of monuments that he can't read because they're written in Electropian. He enters a cave, and after some navigation, drops into an arena containing a very large and very familiar-looking grue. I wonder if it's still hungry.
Day number 3 of feeding my pet Grue to gain his trust.
Hello, muscle-bound Mario. What do you have for me?
A knuckle sandwich.
That sounds divine. Ooh, ow, ouch. Oof, ow, eat high. Ouch, ow. Oh, be still my heart.
Clonington flex.
Seriously, I'm in cardiac arrest.
After conquering his target, he tries to pick it up to take it back to the affluent society, and realizes he can't move it. Back to Lumina, who follows the same path up the mountain. There are 2 monuments here that she can read. One of them says they lost some of the grues during their journey to the temple. Excuse me, sir, I'm trying to read here. Hopefully their remaining stock will be enough to haul items out of the temple and build their first teleporter. The second monument is a message we've seen before: large stone structures guarded by metallic electrical entities. Into the cave, we blink past the grues because we don't have time for them, and we run into Lord Clonington, who is doing push-ups to buff his upper arm strength so he can move this giant dead grue. Lumina, very smartly, chooses to just walk away and continue onward. Now entering the temple, she finds a sign that says the technology the Teslamancers found here is more than capable of building a teleporter, as well as revolutionizing all of their equipment. Lumina is surprised by this because her teachings didn't mention that all of their advancements came from here. The next room has a large electrical maze. Reaching the center allows Lumina to ascend to the next floor, which has a message from Solomon Tesla himself, mentioning an item he is leaving behind to the future generation of Teslamancers. It's an augmentation to the Tesla staff that allows it to fire balls of lightning. The side areas contain switches that serve as a tutorial for the new power. When they're all lit, the way to the south is unlocked. It's the temple that Terry raided, still in lockdown. Lumina is shocked that the chest is empty, but there is a piece of blue scarf left behind. The sign says that Solomon requested this item be kept here for the next generation of Teslamancers to put to good use and investigate the machine's properties. What kind of machine is he talking about? Surely it's not the teleporter, since that machine was completed, yet this part was left here. Maybe it's a spare? The other two signs say that Solomon insists that the remaining parts be left behind intact, as removing the wrong ones could be disastrous. And the flail monks keep stealing their tools because someone made the mistake of feeding one of them. Using the levitation platforms here, Lumina is able to enter a room, flip a switch, and take the temple out of lockdown. She can now return to Tenoc, but we have one more thing to check out first. Going to the right as we leave the temple leads to a couple of switches that open doors, and suddenly we're back at the broken teleporter. If we go back to the trap door at the top of the temple, we can now read the monument here. The Teslamancers called this place the Temple of Tenoc because a strange woman called it so, and said that her people were responsible for building the temples and their robotic guardians. They politely did not ask her why her skin was blue. Lumina is more intrigued than ever as to the mystery behind this woman. Well, we need to return to her anyway, so we drop in again. Tenoc knew she would return empty-handed, and tells her to visit Carte Blanche. When we try to enter, the guard tells her this entrance is off-limits to her, and to use the south entrance instead. With ball lightning, we can open a door and reach the path Clonington took to get to the temple. Backtracking his path takes us into the south side of Carte Blanche, where it becomes clear why we were sent this way. This is the poor side of town. A lady with a spiky black ponytail seems to recognize Lumina, then regains her composure. She appears to be running a soup kitchen for the orphans down here. One of them says it hasn't rained for a long time, and he hopes it stays that way. The building nearby contains the bar, where in-game caricatures of Jörn Lavel and Lynn Catherine Taklo are playing. They are the Bear and Cat behind Bear and Cat Music Production, the composers of all of the music for Teslagrad, World to the West, and the rest of Rain's games. Lumina goes upstairs to the inn and shows the cloth to the innkeeper, who immediately recognizes it as Terry's and tells her that she was going to the Affluent Society, and that since Lumina is not affluent enough to walk in through the front door, she's going to have to sneak her way in. When she checks Terry's room, Lumina spots the titles of several books: Raiders of the Lost Heart, Love Struck in the Temple of Doom, The Last Crusade for Her Passion, The Kingdom of the Crystal Romance? Terry's into romance novels! Well, Carte Blanche was not built to withstand a Teslamancer. As Lumina approaches the roof of the building next to the Affluent Society, she spots an enormous excavation drill bearing the symbol of Motorland. A couple of quick blinks and Lumina is in. She hears a sound coming from under the floor, and as she gets nearer, the trapdoor gives way and Lumina falls into the pit next to Terry. Terry asks if she's alright, and Lumina's about to say she's fine, but then notices the scarf. Terry replies, "Oh yes, thanks for noticing. It's Mesmerizing, and it's one of a kind." You thief! You stole the Teslamancer artifact from that temple, and I need it to get home. Terry tells her that it's too late. Tycoon hired her to retrieve it, and then dropped her into this pit as reward. Quick look at the wall. The previous victim made 108 tally marks. Terry has made 2. Well, this jail was not built to withstand a Teslamancer. One blink and we're free. Terry directs Lumina to a nearby lever. Lumina asks why she should help. Terry responds that she knows where Tycoon is going, and he's now a common enemy to both of them. A few blinks later, she reaches the lever, which releases Terry. Now to get to the other lever to open the door and get out. It's too far for Lumina to reach by blinking, but Terry has a different idea. Mind-controlling one of the nearby sea creatures lets Terry hitch a ride to the lever and reach the exit. They emerge on the dock of Carte Blanche, and Terry swears to give the Blue Lady a piece of her mind. Lumina thinks she's referring to her, but Terry says, no, the weird one in the temple. They both realize they know the same person. Meanwhile, Terry recognizes a contact at the airship. If we head into the inn as Terry and talk to the innkeeper, she's relieved to see that Terry is safe. Terry boasts that she busted herself out completely on her own. The innkeeper says, interesting, so that Teslamancer who just passed through here asking about you had nothing to do with it? Terry sidesteps that question and tells her that Tycoon is a lying traitor. She suspected as much. Terry strikes up a conversation with Jessica, the Mesmerian airship captain. Buttering her up does no good, as she demands payment for both the desert destination they're about to go to, as well as for the airship trip that brought her here. It costs 50 scruples, but since we've been raiding chests everywhere we've seen them, we have plenty. Onward to Chapter 6. As Lumina scouts ahead, Terry finds a new creature, a crustacean with a stone slab on its back. These can be mind-controlled and burrowed near cliffs to give Terry a boost. At the totem, we switch to Lumina and find another new creature, an exploding hamster. These can destroy the large boulders we've been seeing everywhere. Lumina can use positioning strategy to clear a path to the next screen, but Terry can mind-control them and move them directly, so let's set her loose. Terry clears a path for Lumina, and then Lumina clears a path for Terry. The Motorland excavation drill is here, which Lumina deduces is owned by Tycoon. There's also a stone slab that says, "A star fell from the sky in a place full of sand. It was no longer hot and dry, it was frozen land." Terry can read this slab too, which means it's not written in Electropian. Terry uses a hamster grenade to blow up some boulders, then uses a slab crab to reach a key and open a door to the next screen. Indeed, somehow there is a dramatic biome change from desert to wintry landscape. We enter the structure and switch back to Lumina, because this little dungeon is all hers. The monument outside mentions the desert being surprising, and the snow even more so. They find rock fragments that instantly froze water, with evidence that it fell from the skies. It may have been used in a device to traverse great bodies of water. So all of this tells us that this water-freezing mineral came from a meteor that crashed here, turning the surrounding area Arctic, and the material was incorporated into Knaus's ice skates to give them their water-freezing ability. Alright, dungeon time. There are 2 wings, each with switches that Lumina needs to activate with ball lightning. On the right wing we find movable diamond blocks that set up a ricochet path for ball lightning to reach the switches. At the end of the wing is a monument. Hugin and Munin are finished, the teleporter is completed. The near-instant access to the technology located here will allow them to make incredible strides. They have also found the hub of a great machine, but are unsure of its purpose. They promise to investigate until they find an answer. As she enters the left wing, she hears voices say, "There it is, better get it back to Tycoon. Time to get back." Looks like we're here too late. Maybe we can catch them before they leave, but the gap is too far for Lumina to cross. The other passageway has more ricochet puzzles and another monument at the end. The Teslamancers have theorized that this mysterious machine they have discovered can somehow control the weather. But they can't test that theory since they can't activate it. It's missing its power source. Meanwhile, they will try to fabricate an alternative power source using their ingenuity and the materials found here. With all of the switches activated, we can enter the Northern Passage, where we come face to face with a familiar figure clad in red armor and sporting a spiky black ponytail. She accuses the Teslamancers of meddling in other people's affairs even when they don't understand anything. She identifies herself as a ghost from a city that the Teslamancers burned to the ground. She suddenly takes flight and charges at Lumina with her Knuckle Jet. After dodging her attacks and counterattacking when she's vulnerable, the Lady Who Can Fly accuses the Teslamancer of not fighting fair. She leaves with the key and says they will meet again. Lumina moves to the next room and finds another Tesla staff augmentation in the chest. This allows her to teleport herself via the ball lightning, and it has the added benefit of being able to destroy boulders. With this, she can return to Terry, who caught sight of the woman in red. Neither of them knows who she is, only that she is working for Tycoon. They decide to return to Tenoc for further guidance as we proceed to Chapter 7. We're back at the Affluent Society. Indeed. Quite so. Clonington announces his arrival and commits a minor breach of social etiquette by dumping the battered and bloody corpse of a giant Gru upon the rug. Nevertheless, most of them are impressed, except for Lord Cashpile, who claims his obstacle course is more impressive than Clonington's dead Gru. Clonington takes on the challenge. Facing a tall wall, Clonington suddenly decides he can climb up larger cliffs. With ease, he completes the course and smashes Cashpile's record. The next person to challenge Clonington's abilities is Rich Dangerous, who says a true nobleman must prove their nobility with fisticuffs. Clearly, he has no idea who he's up against. Clonington applies the beatdown and declares his superiority above all challengers. Pish Posh, says the Count of Longhook, who says a true nobleman excels at the sport of fishing. Well, the only fish that Clonington delivers is a black eye. Fed up with these games, Clonington demands to know the whereabouts of Tycoon. His valet Barty shows up and says to look for him at the circus down south. As Clonington leaves, he runs into Dr. Hypodermia, who says she's been doing work for their queen. They have learned of the existence of a fruit that promotes longevity, which will keep the queen in power for a long time. She asks Clonington to keep an eye out for it during his adventures, and again, refrain from getting killed. Cloning is hard work. She'll be staying in a shop on the north side of town. Getting to the circus requires navigating through a cave that is infested with Grus. A cautious person might take a stealthy approach. Clonington is not that person. Fortunately, we can take advantage of this ledge to cannonball on top of the pack. After passing through the cave, we finally arrive at Circus Whiplash. They weren't expecting any more customers for the remainder of the, year. You know, most people go to a circus just to see the animal attractions. Clonington wants to fight them. And fight he shall, because inside the big top is Valet Barty, who thinks he's suckered Clonington into a trap. The ringmaster thinks she can market Clonington as their star attraction. Clonington responds by delivering the best line in the entire game. Madame, while my mustache recognizes and respects your mustache, I must decline. Release the mandrills! These guys put up a better fight than Rich Dangerous ever did. After defeating the first one, they release the Knuckle Sandwich. I already made that joke, dude. No worries. We can pull off the same trick we used on the Grus by climbing up the center pillar and stun-locking these guys with butt splashes. The final opponent is slow, but has a large reach. Chipping away at him bit by bit, we get the win. They drop the floor to keep us confined here, but we go underground through the passage the first monkey came from, and along the way feel some pity for these poor clowns who have to work with live Grus. We emerge next to Barty and the ringmaster, and they seem shocked that a purely linear path led us up here from down there. They give Clonington a set of green cuffs that were clearly made for Tycoon, but sweet-talk him into thinking they're just for him. With these, he can now break boulders and escape the circus area. The next section is full of angry critters and unstable columns, so of course we have to very carefully smash everything in sight! We eventually reach the central temple where you-know-who has been waiting for us. Clonington wants to know where Tycoon is hiding, but first he inquires about the young man who wanted to defeat his adversary. What is he talking about? Time for a flashback. Knaus has been sitting here listening to Tenoc rambling for the past several chapters. He confirms with her that they're not on the moon, and decides he needs to save the other children. When the topic of how to deal with Rattrich comes up, Clonington suddenly appears with a giant grue and a pair of green cuffs he's not supposed to have yet. Pro tip, don't ask Clonington for advice on anything. The answer will always be, punch it very, very hard. Knaus remembers a bundle of dynamite that he passed by in the cave on his way to this temple. As for what to do with the orphans, Tenoc knows the lady in Carte Blanche running the orphanage and promises to talk to her. We are now prepared to enter Chapter 8 and make like Elvi as we return to the moon. One quick skate across the water and dynamite acquired. Boulders broken. Huh, this room looks familiar. As he sees some grues looming ahead, he gets a spark of creativity and decides to play dynamite golf with his shovel. Back in the mining camp, Knaus discovers a big stash of scruples behind a wall of boulders. My headcanon believes these are Tycoons and they need to be looted purely out of spite. At the back of the mining camp is a health container upgrade and a large green rocket that I'm pretty sure is the moon bullet that brought everyone here. We drop in to see Rattrich atop a mechanical contraption, lecturing the kids to obey or wind up in a grue's belly like Knaus. Well, yes, that did happen, but we live to tell the tale. Our hero confronts his nemesis. Time to spam some dynamite. As we damage the machine, one by one, the big kids get ejected off of it into the nearby pond. Finally, the vehicle breaks down, Rattrich is sent flying, and the kids are free. Knaus leads them to Tenoc, who is speaking with a somewhat nervous lady with a spiky black ponytail. How many children are we talking about? Oh, about 20. You can handle that, right? The kids depart as Terry and Lumina show up. Lumina catches a glimpse of the lady and says she looks familiar. No matter, the crew is all here, as Clonington teleports in. Lumina introduces him to Terry, but if you know your Teslagrad lore, you know that these two have already met each other. Scrolls 10 and 11 show Clonington and Terry as representatives of their respective countries, and Teslagrad's 100% ending shows them together in a window looking over a plan. Now, something you might not know is that this is not the first time that variations of all four of these characters were designed to be featured in a game together by Rain Games. Predating Teslagrad, Rain's first project was an idea for a game called Minute Mayhem. It was to be a 4-player brawler in an overhead arena, similar to Bomberman. The setting was the four nations of Electropia, Angloria, Mesmer, and Motorland having a tournament to decide who was the best gladiator among the bunch, featuring 2 fighters from each nation. But as the creators worked on developing the setting and the histories of the four nations, they realized that they had a much bigger story to tell, so Minute Mayhem was scrapped, and the concept for what would eventually become Teslagrad was born. But the work that had gone into creating Minute Mayhem's 8 characters would not go to waste. Most of those character designs would persist and make their way into Rain's future games. So let's take a look at some of the character biographies and concept art from Minute Mayhem and see how they evolved from their original forms. Keep in mind that these bios are not canon. We can simply consider them as the inspiration behind the character that would soon follow. First is Lord Clonington, who has changed the least from his original concept. His bio reads, "The defining trait of a truly noble man is his ability to treat his lessers as his peers. Lord Clonington can't seem to tell them apart. They're all so dirty." At some point in the Clonington family history, the art of high breeding reached its ultimate peak as what was considered the two purest bloodlines of all the noble families of Angloria joined together and produced a child, the young lord. With the family tradition of never marrying someone of lesser standard, the Clonington family found itself unable to marry off their son, and as time passed, he too realized that in order to marry to the family standard, he would have to marry into the imperial royal family. They, in turn, were afraid to be outnobled by the Clonington's pure bloodline and refused. Lord Clonington, intent on not being the end of his line, turned to the Anglorian Institute of Scientific Pursuit and invested a fair share of the family fortune on the only means of procreating without diluting his bloodline: cloning. Nobody knows how far from the original the current lord is removed, but he seems his same old self, over 20 years since his prime. Despite many failed and a few presumed successful assassination attempts, the Clonington family prevails and waits. The royal family is ever nervous. Next is Miss Terry, also very close to her original design. Her bio reads, "Miss Terry, airship captain, adventurer, explorer, lover, fighter, cheese enthusiast. She might look petite and vulnerable, but do not let looks deceive. She really does love her cheese." Born in Rohan, the capital of Mesmer, Miss Terry is the indulgent heir of the Terry family fortune and airship empire. She is as sought by suitors for her wealth as for her beauty. As fate would have it, the young miss is easily bored and has little interest in items bought or given, like jewels or the hearts of men. Without the thrill of the hunt, such trinkets are worthless. Fueled by her lust for adventure and backed by the family's great riches and resources, Miss Terry is the leading treasure hunter in all of Mesmer, if not all of Chroma. In her spare time, she concocts poisons, potions, perfumes, and other paraphernalia. It should be mentioned that Chroma is Minute Mayhem's name for the continent containing the four nations of Electropia, Angloria, Mesmer, and Motorland. I haven't seen that name carry forward into the Teslagrad universe, so I'm not sure if it's canon or not. Third is the Teslamancer. This character has gone through the most iterations of artwork and design because it would serve as the style template defining the look of all Teslamancers, and it would also serve as the specific character design for what would eventually become the main character in Teslagrad. His Minute Mayhem bio reads, "From Teslagrad, the capital city of Electropia, caught under an eternal thunderstorm and delivering much of the electricity to the great nation, emerges a highly specialized form of genius, the Teslamancer. Specializing in the electrical and magnetic arts which were refined by the first of their kind, they are truly peerless in technological prowess and might. In practice, Teslamancy is perceived to be so fantastic that laymen often refer to it as true magic. This belief is supported by the aura of mystique surrounding the Order of the Teslamancers. The Order is rumored to work tirelessly on the advancement of Electropia's goals, but even amongst the highest echelons of Electropian government, nobody knows where their true agenda lies. In the Mayhem tournament, the Teslamancer stands out as a frightful example of Electropia's technological advancement. Next, we have a character from Motorland named Cogboy. This is the prototype for the child that would eventually become Knaus, and the biggest redesign among the four characters. For what it's worth, here's the bio. Attaining his nickname at an extremely young age, last year, Cogboy has opted to stick with it as a brand of honor. Being one of several wunderkinder in Motorland, Cogboy still stands out. He brings not only ingenuity to the Mayhem tournament, but also the reliable yet true madness of science against anyone who might stand in his way. Albeit small, Cogboy is sure to bring honor to the Motorland. Although he has not developed an evil laugh yet, everyone is sure he will when he comes of age. A frail, large-headed, bespectacled boy would usually have some challenges to overcome the stronger neighborhood boys, but those who would have been bullies in most circumstances are more frequently considered victims when seen running from a multi-bladed, spider-legged, automated mechanical monstrosity. Still deeply rooted in his childish tendencies, Cogboy still gets nervous, angsty, lonely, furious, frustrated, annoyed, or indeed annoying as easily as any other child. While this is in no way unusual at his age, it can be anything from a pest to the apocalypse when the boy throws a tantrum. Finally, we have a supporting character, Dr. Hypodermia. In Minute Mayhem, the name was Dr. Hypodermius, and the character was originally male. But the Anglorian mad scientist angle stuck. Here's the bio. It wouldn't be fair to the world of science to call Hypodermius a doctor, but what he lacks in medical degrees, he makes up for in enthusiasm. Bribing the Cespulian Office of Registry, he changed his first name to Doctor to escape the hassle of procuring an actual medical license. The fees, the studying, and the Hippocratic Oath would simply get in the way. Dr. Hypodermius is, in spite of his lacking education, one of the foremost biochemists in Angloria, which makes him as feared as he is respected. Hypodermius opened the city's first free clinic, 2 daycare centers, and a petting zoo. When he is not practicing medicine in his clinic, the good doctor customizes pets for the astonishingly rich upper class, produces military-grade bioweaponry for recreational purposes, and volunteers as medical staff for the homeless shelter. Hypodermius denies all connections to the hobo mutant uprising of '83. And while we're on the topic of character backstories, there is one more thing external to the game to talk about. A comic book that was released alongside World to the West entitled Motorland Tale. Now, I have to cover it because it's lore, but it is DLC, and I encourage you to support Rain Games, spend the $2, and check it out for yourself. Knaus's father helped build the moon bullet, which is being prepared to be launched from a giant cannon. On his way to grab his tools, Knaus runs into a girl, causing her to drop her hat. He retrieves it and returns it to her, and finds out her name is Axel, and she's excited to have been selected to be on the moon bullet and get sent to the moon tomorrow. Later that day, Knaus wonders aloud to his father why he isn't going. His father says he worked in the mines as a boy, he's not well educated, but he knows steel and machinery, and he has doubts that the cannon can reach the moon. Therefore, he doesn't think they're going to survive the trip, so he's been protecting Knaus, preventing him from being selected. He laments the kids who have been selected, exploited by the coal barons as an easily expendable sacrifice should anything go wrong. They go to bed, and Knaus sneaks out during nightfall. The next morning, Rattrich is performing a roll call of the Moon Bullet crew. He calls out Axel's name, and a hand shoots up in response. As the kids line up to board, one of them goes behind the cannon's machinery and jams a pickaxe into the gears. Rattrich shows up and grabs the child from behind, recognizing them as Axel by the hat, and forcibly throws them aboard the Moon Bullet, only to not recognize the child's face. It's Knaus. His father gets up in a panic after noticing his son's absence, and watches in horror as the cannon fires. Meanwhile, Axel wakes up after oversleeping and finds a note. "Dear mining girl, my father thinks that if you travel with the moon bullet, then you will not be okay. My father helped build the cannon. Knaus." Alright, back to the main story. Now that all 4 characters are together, Tenoc can finally reveal the reason why fate has brought them all here. Compared to the settlers who have come here from the eastern continent, Tenoc's people have been here long enough to be considered natives to this land. Tenoc herself is a soothsayer who has been peering into the future using an instrument called the Lens of Time. In it, she foresaw a great calamity caused by a man she now knows to be Tycoon. She reveals that the Teslamancers were correct, that the great mysterious machine they found is indeed a weather machine. In times of drought, it can save a harvest, but when used for malice, it can cause great destruction. Her people tried to intervene to prevent Tycoon from gaining access to it, but he rallied the settlers against the natives by branding them as savages, and of course they came to his aid. Tenoc scoured the future with the lens of time in search of anything that could give a glimmer of hope, and found these 4 adventurers. She starts to say that she previously had 4 apprentices at some point in the past, but abandons that train of thought and takes you to see her people as we finally transition to Chapter 9. Tenoc welcomes us to her village. We are the very first outsiders to visit, but times are desperate and we have a date with destiny. She encourages us to talk to everyone and then see her at the north end. The villagers are somewhat wary of our presence, but they trust Tenoc's judgment and reluctantly welcome us in. Clonington promises to have Hypodermia send Tenoc a bill for his services. Lumina is in disbelief that it's possible to see the future. It goes against everything she's been taught. Most importantly, one of the villagers says that their historian has recorded the events of their past in a series of scrolls that are hidden throughout the land, and these scrolls also unlock certain gates in their temples. Story time with Tenoc. She reveals that the weather machine is underwater in the middle of the lake. It requires 3 control cores to use it, as well as a power source. Long ago, they disabled the power source to make sure the machine's destructive nature could not be exploited. However, due to some outside meddling, an alternative power source exists and is in Tycoon's hands. A quick cut into the future. If we revisit the Ice Temple as Lumina and cross the gap where we heard the voices, we find an empty chest and a monument that says the Teslamancers completed the power source, but they had no time to activate the weather machine with it because they had to urgently leave. They left it in the temple they first encountered for safekeeping, in the hope that future Teslamancers could investigate it. So this power source was the very artifact that Terry retrieved and personally delivered to Tycoon. Oops. However, he does not yet have the control cores, so we have to get to them before he does. Terry and Lumina realize that one of those control cores has already been seized by Tycoon's crimson-clad crusader. That leaves 2 left to find. The first is far to the southwest, guarded by an underwater warden. The second is locked away behind strange doors. As they leave, a villager invites Terry to check out his collection of animals. She expresses interest, but has no way to carry them around. The villager gives her a bag of holding for pocket-sized creatures. Probably a good idea to load up on exploding hamsters and flail monks. At long last, we are turned loose. I consider the first 8 chapters the first half of the game, and Chapter 9 the second half of the game, because before this point our progression was very linear, and our opportunities to explore were very limited. But now that everyone has the ability to break boulders, the game finally opens up and we can freely explore the entire map. So before we tackle the main objectives, there are a couple of things we can do as side quests, and some new content to discover. Let's start by revisiting Carte Blanche, this time as Knaus, since he hasn't been there yet. Oh, right, we're poor. In through the south entrance. This lady, sensing his orphan nature, tells him to get some soup from Anastasia. Aha! The spiky black ponytailed lady's name is revealed. Her dialogue hasn't changed, by the way. The news lady says that Tycoon has disappeared from the public eye, and the recent arrival of Clonington means he is responsible. She's not wrong. Next, you'll notice that the word carte has disappeared from the Carte Blanche sign. It's up here, where someone has removed and discarded the letter T to make it kind of say the word care. That someone is Dr. Hypodermia, who has turned this building into her personal mad scientist clinic. For Knaus, she offers experimentation, which he politely declines. For Terry, she again offers experimental Anglorian biotech, which is a hard pass. For Lumina, she offers to buy her equipment, which she absolutely refuses. She then inquires about Clonington, and again requests that he doesn't get himself killed. He might be an idiot, but he's a very expensive idiot. For Clonington himself, she has been researching the locations of concentrated distillations of plant matter that she requests Clonington to ingest. In other words, she wants him to pick up health containers, because she's shocked that he hasn't managed to get himself killed yet, and she's still not prepared for the cloning process out here. At the desk, we can buy the map locations of the health shrines, which is going to be useful in the not-too-distant future. Next is visiting Oleg. When speaking to him with Terry, he doesn't have anything interesting to say. With Lumina, however, he recognizes that she is far from home and acknowledges that he knows her father. He cautions her that this land is nothing like Electropia. Also sitting nearby is a familiar orange cat. It's Jens, the cat who has made cameos in most of Rain's games by way of being the lead artist's cat. Finally, with Clonington, Oleg says he has heard of his pugilistic prowess and decides to meet him in the ring to give him a real challenge. Other people that Clonington can pick a fight with. In the circus area, this very dapper monkey with a stunningly fashionable hat. Clonington demands to know the name of his haberdasher and promises to beat the information out of him in the ring. In Carte Blanche, we have the innkeeper, who says she has done some fighting in her heyday and would love to give it a go again. And the town guard, who also wants a piece of the action. I'm going to skip over the fights themselves for the sake of time, but the lore to be found here is that the dapper mandrill is named Smackington von Punch, the innkeeper is named Clara, and the guard captain is named Mr. Harrison. After defeating all of them, plus Oleg, we are challenged by a final opponent, a robot named BuzzBuzz. Not even Tycoon has defeated this mysterious machine. It speaks only in binary, and translating its messages to text yields some pretty funny trash talk. And it can absolutely back up those words with its fists, without question the hardest fist fight in the game. If you don't bring your best, it will wreck your face. Beating the robot earns Clonington the prestige of being the top pugilist, including a cash prize and a large golden statue in the lobby, replacing the old Tycoon statue that was previously here. The next side quest is collecting the scrolls. There are 36 in total. We only need 15 of them to progress the plot, but they each contain lore, so of course we're going to pick up all of them. Until we progress the plot, we can only get to 34 of them, but when I cover their content, I will include all 36 for completeness. But before we do that, we need to outline their significance. Back in Chapter 3, after Knaus got the ice skates, he was able to reach this island in the center of the lake, south of where Oleg lives. There is a native child here named Iknoyatl, who is pursuing science. If we visit Iknoyatl again in Chapter 9, he says he's been researching the local plant life, and mentions a very special fruit that used to grow here, which makes you live really long. If we continue talking, Knaus asks him about Tenoc. Iknoyatl refers to her as Auntie Tenoc, because that's what she tells everyone to call her, but she can't be everyone's aunt, can she? Behind the campsite where we heard Tenoc's story is a gigantic tree with a slab in front of it. Knaus is illiterate. Poor kid. Terry and Lumina can read it, and it says, "This land will be perfect for the roots of the tree. Our people will prosper under the guidance of myself and my pupils. Once the tree bears the fruit, it will mark a new era for us." Clonington, who was directly instructed by Hypodermia to seek out a life-giving fruit for her queen, says, "I don't care what this says." Unbelievable. So what is the deal with this fruit? Well, if you recall way back in the lore of Teslagrad, I had hypothesized from the hints in Wintergarden that consuming its juice restores youthful strength, but consuming too much turns people sinister. The Wintergarden tree very much resembles this one, so it looks like mechanical technology wasn't the only thing the Teslamancers took from this land. A seed from this tree, planted in a specially built greenhouse within their Tesla tower, makes perfect sense. But how did the fruit of this tree impact the natives? To answer that, we can now look at the scrolls to learn their history. The founder came on a ship, spotting fertile land. By her command, the people made it theirs. She laid the roots of her greatest masterpiece. 4 wise disciples gathered under her word. Mictlan loved death and life, and Xenu loved future and past. Chal and Tlaloc loved rain, sun, the sky, and each other even more. Then at last the Founder's work bore fruit, and in that she had great hope. Through the essence blue it might grant endless life. But the truth of this boon was yet to be revealed. In time her mind grew powerful, but her thoughts grew dark and grim. The Keeper of Time, her most trusted one, was appointed in her stead. Xenu ruled as best he could, and the people flourished. Of the disciples, one felt that his counsel was much overlooked, and he gave the disciples the fruits from the Founder's tree. Alone on his throne, Xenu now felt despair descend. He worried for their future. What was to be his final fate? A lens he crafted to see the threads of times unfold. Through the lens, Xenu saw only ruin and despair. He brought his vision to the Founder and pleaded for her to return. Together they toiled, attempting to change their people's fate. The land became neglected as the great task commenced. Their beloved people fell by the wayside, forgotten. Mictlan's most dreaded vision was now complete. Mictlan, Chal, and Tlaloc moved to cast Xenu from his throne. The Founder fled in the chaos, never seen again. Mictlan, in his anger, struck Xenu down, his endless life now ended. Horrified at the brutality, Chal and Tlaloc railed. Chal was shocked by Mictlan's action, and she bade Tlaloc act. They had the people take Mictlan and punish him for his deed. So Mictlan rotted in the dark while Chal and Tlaloc ruled. Through their power, Chal and Tlaloc gave bounty to the land. But Tlaloc's mind grew dark, and the people's gifts would please him no more. For long dark years he would use his might to make his wrath known. No single word from Chal would end Tlaloc's terrible reign. In the end, Chal would call down the sky to end the blue fruit's cycle. And so the world ended. Just a handful were left to start the world anew. So the fruit didn't just grant youth, it granted immortality, and it also tinted their skin blue. The proof of this immortality has been standing in front of us this whole time, the Founder herself, Tenoc. And if we look back at Teslagrad, we see there was another person who consumed this fruit, made himself immortal, and had his skin turn blue as a result. None other than the King. We are now ready to enter the southwestern temple. Getting there requires navigating through the harsh southern part of the desert and its turbulent sandstorms. And the journey has to be done with all 4 characters, with each one taking a slightly different path as their abilities permit, because from now on, the dungeons require the coordinated efforts of the entire quartet. The task is quite simple. 4 gongs to ring, and each one can only be reached by a specific adventurer. After the deed is done, only Terry can proceed. Underneath these lily pads lies a humongous sea creature. Terry must carefully cross and avoid getting eaten. After reaching the other side, she opens the chest and successfully retrieves the control core. Getting to the other temple requires solving an overworld puzzle of opening a series of 4 doors. You guessed it, 1 door per character. The temple doors are sealed with the power of lore. Fortunately, we have collected all the scrolls we can, and the seals are broken. Inside is a series of messages from Tenoc detailing her rise and fall. The fruit has bloomed, and it is beyond what I could have ever dreamed. My pupils are also flourishing, making me very proud. I am very hopeful for what is to come. I have no choice but to proclaim this as a warning. The fruit gave me much insight, but perhaps too much. I have seen things, and my mind goes to places I don't wish for it to go. I have appointed Mictlan in my stead. I must go elsewhere. My fears have come true. I don't know where to go from here. I am sorry. I failed. After unsealing the door requiring 15 scrolls, Lumina catches sight of the chest containing the control core, but before she can reach it, the ground rumbles and Tycoon's excavation drill bursts forth from the wall. Piloting it is a mysterious lady in red armor. Oh, who am I kidding? It's Anastasia. Time for a rematch. When we defeat her again, she tears off her helmet in frustration, grabs the control core, and leaves. Empty-handed, we teleport away and find ourselves redirected to the heirloom tree. Tenoc has apparently summoned all of us here. She praises us for recovering one of the control cores, and says while it's in our possession, the weather machine is safe. Suddenly the earth shakes and it begins to rain. The weather machine is decidedly not safe. Activating the machine without all 3 cores makes it an even more unstable situation. Tenoc tells us that we must drain the lake so that we can reach the hub of the machine. To do that, we need to operate the mechanisms of the temple to the north. When we reach the weather machine, we need all 3 control cores to shut it down. Tenoc cautions us that once the machine is activated with all 3 cores, only the person who activated it will be able to give commands to it. Lumina makes a side trip to Carte Blanche to have some words with Anastasia, but no, the dialogue is still unchanged. Even the orphan who hopes it won't rain is still saying the same thing. This lady's dialogue does change. She comments that Lumina is dressed for the rain. Alright, time to tackle the water temple. Don't worry, it's not as tedious as the one in Ocarina of Time. Lumina goes first, activating a pair of switches so she can pull a lever. While she is here, she can shoot these gongs to open up a door for Clonington to use later, and she can also pick up the 35th scroll, as well as her final health shrine. Now for everyone else. Like before, unique entrance paths and a separate area of the temple for each person. Once they have all pulled their respective levers, we switch back to Lumina for the next area. Now, as a fan, lore master, and speedrun strategist of Teslagrad, I have fought Garrica's orb a large number of times, so you can imagine my overwhelming excitement when a giant 3D Guardian orb revealed itself. This is hands down my favorite boss fight in the game. The fanservice callback is awesome. It's challenging, but not too difficult. It's just a whole lot of fun. After defeating the orb, the water level lowers, and we can now proceed to the end of the game and fight Tycoon. But before that, our final side quests can be completed. Poor Oleg complains that his beautiful lake is now empty. Terry tells him to deal with it. They're on a mission to save the world. Traveling to this waterfall, we find it has now run dry, revealing a cave, and inside is the 36th and final scroll. Returning to the sealed temple, we can now open the final door. Inside are 4 chests, one for each character. Lumina retrieves a pair of non-functional blink boots. Knaus finds a bag of black powder. Terry collects a glowing nuclear rod. And Clonington gets a piece of blue fruit. Each mysterious item needs to be taken to a specific place to unlock its potential. Lumina takes the blink boots to Jens the cat to infuse them with a static charge from his fur. This significantly lowers the cooldown of her blink ability. Knaus brings the powder to Ignoyotl, who incorporates it into his dynamite to give it a gigantic explosion radius. Terry takes her nuclear waste to Dr. Hypodermia. She's expecting a cash reward, but instead gets a boost to the metabolism of her small animals. Doesn't really feel that powerful, but at least they look a lot cooler. Clonington, despite all odds, miraculously completes his quest and delivers the Fruit of Endless Life to Hypodermia. Looks like Angloria is getting an immortal queen after all. Clonington demands a reward. Hypodermia is about to offer him some highly experimental biotech, but instead he runs over to a meal on the table and devours it immediately. No biotech, just Hypodermia's lunch. Still, it upgrades his Bull Rush to give him much greater control. And with that, we have nothing left but to confront Tycoon and complete the game. Everyone enters the hub, leaving Clonington to climb to the top. Clonington boasts to Tycoon that he has the final control core as he engages in a fistfight over the title of the most aristocratic aristocrat. Defeating Tycoon, Clonington declares victory, only to be sent flying by the excavation drill, dropping the control core for Tycoon to gain full control of the weather machine. Lumina emerges next, and Tycoon is surprised that Anastasia was not able to get rid of her. Lumina wonders what Tycoon told her to get her to hate Teslamancers so much. He didn't need to say anything. They committed whatever atrocity it was all on their own. Always meddling. And because of their meddling, Tycoon can execute his evil plan of world domination. After bopping him a few times with the Tesla staff, Tycoon decides to remain inside his drill and let the weather machine run its course. Coming to the rescue next is Knaus, who enters the drill. Tycoon scoffs at the child, then recognizes his clothes and berates him for not working in his coal mine. Knaus defiantly tells him he freed the rest of the orphans and nobody's going to work in his fake moon mine ever again. Using his upgraded dynamite, Knaus blows up all of the power conduits inside the drill, setting it on fire and forcing Tycoon out. Waiting for him is Terry, who has been eager for some payback after getting swindled. Tycoon tells her that he can swindle whomever he wants, and now that he has the third core from Clonington, he is in full control of the weather machine, and it will only obey his commands. Only you can give commands to this machine? Fine, you're going to shut it down for me, and I'm going to ride on your shoulders while you're doing it. The power source explodes, and the weather machine goes dormant once again. Peace settles across the land, and the four adventurers go their separate ways. Oleg, Jens, and Iknayadl take in the serenity of their refilled lake, and the coal mine is graced with a few new members in the shame pits: Ratrich, his cronies, and Tycoon. Smackington Von Punch admires the circus folk. The pugilists nurse their wounds, and Clonington departs on his boat back to Angloria, with Lumina hitching a ride as the credits roll. But really, all of this excitement could have been avoided if we had just gone outside again at the very beginning of the game. Lumina and her younger siblings spent all of this time and effort looking for their dad when he's standing right here. Okay, this obviously isn't lore. This is a bit of a programming oversight. To enable the dad entity to trigger the lamps as he walked by them, they coded him as a monster. And when you leave a scene and re-enter it, monsters always reset back to their original spawn points. They just didn't think about anyone bothering to come back here. So what happens after World to the West? Terry returns to her homeland and discovers an oppressive regime has taken over. She makes it her mission to appeal to the public and spark a revolution in Mesmer. Lumina makes her way back home and then is sent on a scouting mission to a Teslamancer establishment up north. On the way there, she gets shot down by the local Vikings and winds up contending with the remnants of a forgotten colony in Teslagrad 2. Finally, the acrobatic Anastasia will be mowing through Motorland in the upcoming rocket-powered action game. Oh, what was it called? That thing on her arm. Arm thingy. That's it for this video. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. I know this was a long one, but I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. See you next time.